we already talked a little bit about Bishop Weisenberger, and we didn't steal him from you. We didn't even know we were getting him, but I didn't realize. And then I saw that he's on your board too.
Yes, yes. Bishop Weisenberger is a very good friend of Kino. Just over the years, has accompanied us, has guided us, and we didn't say you stole him from us. But we were really sorry to see him leave, and we know that that's the way the Spirit moves, that's the way the church moves. We knew that Detroit was going to definitely benefit from this, and that the church was going to be growing in those ways. And we've received Bishop Misko, and that is another gift for us. But we were really, really quite grateful, knowing the challenges that Detroit is facing in a lot of different ways, but particularly in the area of people who are on the move and migrants. And he's really continued in that leadership role of how to accompany and advocate for people who are on the move, the way he did with us here.
Yeah, immigration is just right down the street from us, and so it's it's a passion of ours, and we have Strangers No Longer, which is a collaboration between us. I mean, they're their own nonprofit, but us and Jesu, the other Jesuit parish in Detroit, participate in. So we have a heart for immigration and refugees, which is why Father Gary had mentioned your ministry. And so, but how did you get involved with Kino Border Initiative? And then what's your role there? Like, what I have never heard of a mobilization specialist, but that sounds very fancy. So,
to be frank, I wasn't really familiar with it before I came on board as a mobilization specialist. So it's just kind of one of the ways that a lot of new things emerge in the church and in ministry and in the world. I came down here. I was called down here, I'll say, after completing a ministry of leadership in my own congregation. So I'm a Franciscan sister of perpetual adoration, and our mother house is in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So I'm very familiar with the Midwest, lived there back and forth for the most part about 23 years. Came here to the Arizona-Mexico border after living decades in Wisconsin and Minneapolis, St. Paul, and in the upper Midwest. Originally from California. So the Southwest is not new to me. It's a little bit like coming home. But when I was in leadership, I was serving as the president of our congregation. And during that time, we just felt a strong call to become more aware, educated, and involved in what was happening with people who were in migration at that time. So if you'll remember 2018, 2019, that's when we were seeing the caravans, coming up from Central America. It was on the news quite a bit. A lot of people were asking questions. La Crosse, Wisconsin is, I like to think of it as the West Coast of Wisconsin. So it's a high agricultural area. And so most of our farms are, all of the labor is migrant labor. But in La Crosse, we didn't really recognize that as an immigrant population, as a lot of diversity at that point. And what we knew was that the immigrants around us were hidden. They were out on farms. They didn't really leave those farms. They still don't, for the most part, I believe. So we just knew that there was a call to get more involved. And one of our sisters, Sister Katie Mitchell, was at Mundelein Seminary at that time in formation, and we were looking for partners and collaborators. And she was bringing seminarians down for immersion experiences here at Kino. And so she invited us to explore a relationship with Kino, and we did. And Kino was was kind of our mentor in learning about what's happening at the border, one part of the
Right.
border, right? Because along
Right.
the entire border, I mean, you're just in a different world at the different parts of the
Right.
border that you come towards. So we started to learn with Kino, we started to collaborate, and over the years, develop this relationship with them. And as I was personally coming to the end of my service, I was starting to ask myself the question, what's the next step? I didn't know,
Right.
but I did feel a call to border ministry, and I was very influenced, still am, by the statement of Pope Francis. And he said, life happens at the margins.
Mm.
And that led me a lot in my leadership. It's led me a lot in my personal spirituality. And I knew that the call was to move out to the margins in some way, as several of my sisters, we've been discerning this in so many different ways. And so it just happened that I found out about this program that was run through Kino called Catholic Sisters Walking with Migrants. And it offers an opportunity for sisters to come down to live, work, serve, learn everything here at the Nogales border. And I thought, well, that feels like the next step. So I took that next step. And while I was here, I was, I got to meet, I mean, so many people here. And then I let people know that I was in discernment of what this next step was, and that a call to border ministry felt very important to me. I didn't really know what that meant, but I was willing to learn. And at a deeper level, a call to be accompanied by people who were on the move felt very important for us spiritually. And
Right.
so they were developing this position, a mobilization specialist position, with the education advocacy team at that time. And Joanna Williams, who's our executive director, she said, I want you to take a look at this position because I think it might be a fit. And I was very interested in looking at that position because I didn't know what a mobilization specialist did. But when I
Yeah.
started to see some of the expectations of it, of working with groups that come down and have an immersion experience, and then working with them when they go back home and they leave the border, but we ask them to accompany and to advocate for people on the move in their own areas and how to support them and how to accompany them. I thought, I think I can do that. So that's a lot of what I do is I'm a part of the education advocacy team here, and education is a big part of our mission. Both education and advocacy are big parts of our mission. And so we invite groups to come down, parishes come down, high schools, colleges, different faith groups come down. A lot of them are our faith groups that come down in that context because our immersion experience is based upon Catholic social teaching and our faith, and quite frankly, the exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola. So when groups come down, we expect that they would have some sort of a transformation. Little seeds are planted or things are grow within them that have already been planted. And then we always have kind of a next steps process before they leave. And so I engage with them in some of those next steps. And sometimes, when they're back in Chicago or La Crosse, Wisconsin, I can help them develop plans so that they can, in their own community, advocate and accompany migrants in a way that helps them act upon the insights that they received when they were here at the border.
Yeah. The follow-up component is so important, right? Because you have that initial experience, that aha, kind of awakening. And then without that follow-up, you go back and you just kind of get back into life as usual. And um, I'm curious because I've heard about immersion experiences like this before, but like, what does that encompass? what, like, when, I mean, you're immersed, but obviously, right? But what does that like encompass to have this experience?
Yeah. Well, we work closely with the groups who come here. That's part of the accompaniment for us is we walk with them in a variety of situations, and we have guidelines. We have an acronym. We call it HAC. It's HAC, and the guidelines that we use are H is to humanize the experience of migration, that it's not something out here. It's not just something that you hear on a podcast or
Right.
you see on the nightly news. These are people that we're talking about. But what does it mean to humanize here at the southern border of ambos Nogales? So it's Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora. And so we try to humanize the complexity really of this issue. So people come and they will serve breakfast to the people who come to our comedor, or our dining area. People who are in need on the Sonoran side, on the Mexican side, people who are either who are seeking asylum or who are deported, who are just in the act of looking for their home, right? But we also go to the ranchers, in Arizona, to the southern ranchers who also are highly impacted by immigration, and they have their perspective. We talk with law enforcement agents. We'll go either to Border Patrol, or we'll talk with Sheriff Hathaway here, the Santa Cruz County Sheriff. And we'll also speak with women who have been in a cooperative here on the Sonoran side and who are trying to integrate into the Sonoran community, but not being from here. So we try to offer a variety of different experiences, um, to kind of shake people up from what they thought. We all come with our
Yeah.
own biases, right? And it's totally natural, but it's just to invite people into another perspective. So we humanize that by
Right.
having a lot of different encounters. And then the A in HAWK is for accompaniment. So we accompany the group, they accompany themselves as well. And so they're doing a lot of processing, they're doing a lot of learning in the experience. We're bringing Catholic social teaching into the questioning, we're bringing visa simulation exercises. They're being accompanied by migrants. Along the way, they're being accompanied by other volunteers. So the importance of walking together, of having that encounter. Pope Francis again was big on cultivating a culture of encuentro. What happens when we accompany each other on the way? And of course, that's what migrants do, right? Is they're on the way. And so what does that mean? So that's another important component of our immersion. And then the third, the C, is to complicate. We just complicate the issue. It's not black and white. No one is an expert in immigration, right? It's such a huge issue. It's always changing. The people are changing, the laws are changing. And so to invite people into the uncertainty of leaving what the bias might have been, before coming into this, and entering into the complexity, invites a little bit of an openness to transformation. And from the Jesuit background, it invites discernment, right? It's like we can't come in saying, I know this is right, I know this is wrong. But really, what is the way? What is the way? And asking for guidance and discernment in the next best steps. And for us, we would say to dignify the people who are in these situations of needing to leave everything that they know in search of some sort of belonging and a home and stability and safety, but also for the people who are here to actually, to recognize the the beauty of welcoming, of being a
Right.
welcoming community, of offering hospitality, of recognizing who our neighbors are, and then in line with the Good Samaritan, and then offering that healing component, that accompaniment, that help, and integrating, people into our communities. There's huge gift in that. There's huge grace. And so those are HAC, humanize, accompany, and complicate. That's what we try to do when people come. So they usually come for about 7 days. It can be, we have 1-day visits. We have 1-day visits, but we also have, up to 7 days. We have a house on the Jesuit campus in Nogales, Arizona, and it's a big community house. So people live simply in a big house. And then every day we have some sort of, agenda that follows this curriculum of humanizing, accompanying, complicating. So we walk back and forth over the border. We have a trip to Tucson for part of this. People are able to see the federal immigration court and people who are brought in front of judges. There's just a lot of different experiences that people can have when they come here.
Yeah, that's a very complex experience. I couple of things I thought. One, the appreciation of um, all the different aspects of the process, like walking with the immigrants, walking with ranchers, walking with um, Border Patrol. But then you mentioned something about like a visa application scenario or whatever. And it made me think of, my husband was laid off in 2009 during the recession. And we had a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. It was the first time I'd ever applied for food stamps. And I had a master's degree, and I'm like, this is the most complicated process to apply for food stamps. And most of the people who need them don't have the amount of education that I have or technical skills. And I thought it was a whole new, like just that little experience was a whole new eye-opening of um, they make it really hard. The process is really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I think that there are two common questions when it comes to people who are migrating in different ways. And one is, why do they come in the first place? And the other is why not do it the right way?
Yeah.
And when you talk about like there are systems set up, systems that have been in need of reform for decades, and we haven't been able to reform them. But the process is so incredibly complicated that it's very limited to apply for visas. Um, and even doing it the right way, a family reunification, right? A worker visa, it can take 10 to 15 to 20, more than 20 years, depending on a situation.
Yeah.
And and really the reasons that people are moving have changed so drastically,
Right.
since we've first initiated and put the criteria in for those policies.
Right. Um, so I think about your collaborators who are because is it, I'm going to guess no organization really can exist by themselves, right? So who collaborates with you to really make this happen?
Mhm. One of the things that I loved about Kino when I first learned about it is just the mission itself is a collaborative mission. It's a collaborative founding. It's relatively new, around 2009. That's when people being deported just drastically increased here in Nogales, and there
Oh, God.
was no infrastructure whatsoever here. So the missionaries of the Eucharist were here. They're a Mexican congregation of sisters. They were here and they were working a little bit in some other border ministries, but nothing as focused as humanitarian relief. They started to work with parishioners in this area to feed the people who were coming in, and it was growing and growing. At that point, Jesuit Refugee Services were also looking at what was needed. And so there was a collaboration that happened there. And then Jesuit West started to discern. They had been in discernment, I believe, but what they could do. And so I think that the way that missions are happening now, I mean, we're in a world of collaboration and networking, right? So Jesuits West came in. And the beauty of all of this is it's supported by the Diocese of Tucson, Arizona, and the Diocese of Nogales, Sonora. So I think that
Oh,
there's
nice.
like five major just founding collaborators in this. And then it's just kind of branched out since then. So we have a lot of different kind of from the service standpoint. I would say the parishes in the area, we have regular volunteers from parishes here on the Mexican side, from Cristo Rey and from the different parishes here. So they work with us a lot. We're collaborating more with the businesses who are here on the Sonoran Mexican side, because now people who are here, they have no hopes of getting asylum in the United States. That's been eliminated for them. So we're trying to work with people on how to get jobs, how to find some sort of way to integrate people into the community. Through this Catholic Sisters Walking with Migrants program, a lot of different congregations have been collaborating with Kino. So the Sisters of the Living Word, the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, they do different aspects. And of course, the network becomes more complex, right, as it moves out. Of course, the border, in a sense, is everywhere. So that mission is very applicable in a lot of different ways. A strong collaborator here in Sonora, though, and at the border from Arizona, is the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project. So we call them the Florence Project. And they're one of the crucial collaborators with us as we look at advocacy. And they've been here, really from the beginning, and they help us, and they help the people that we serve with legal consultation. They work a lot through, well, they were born out of the detention centers in Florence, Arizona. That's where that kind of initial call for the organization came. And so they work with us a lot in advocacy and legal consult. We have a lot of different Jesuit organizations that do come through us through immersion programs, but we develop a relationship with them over time. So Georgetown comes, Fordham comes, we were just with Gonzaga Prep, which is an all-girls school in Washington, and they come on a regular basis. That's kind of part of their curriculum. So when they go back to their communities, they become strong collaborators in just migrant rights for us. We've recently gotten more involved in Catholics in Communion, which
Oh,
is a national movement that's based in really in advocacy and social justice, environmental justice as well. And we're working a little bit now with in Chicago. We're planning some events with the Coalition for Spiritual and Public Leadership. So that's a kind of a new relationship we're developing. We have quite a few collaborators at both the local level, but very regional as well. And we're also part of the Jesuits network for migrants. So of course,
oh,
having that intercontinental collaboration is crucial in a lot of different ways.
wow, that's great. You have a lot, yeah, you have a lot of collaborators to really make this work. I mean, it does. It takes many hands for when you're dealing with complex issues like this. Um, I was surprised to find out that that the Kino ministry actually straddles the border. Like you're physically in both locations, and you're practically in, I mean, it's a two country issue. It's a combined issue. Now, I'm at the northern border, at the Canadian border. So now we go over, we'll go to Canada and come back, and like that's. But I know for people who commute to Canada and back, or we have Canadians that will come work in Detroit. Um, like it's not a big deal crossing the border, but when you're in line with all those trucks, it takes a while. And my understanding is you are crossing the border almost daily. Like, how do you how do you do that? Like strategically, that seems like um just seems monumentous. It seems like a big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that is so much a part of kind of our, I don't know, our mindset of really trying to build up the southern border of the United States,
Right.
because 10 million people cross this border a year just through Nogales. It
Wow.
is, I mean, it's a key point for industry. It's we have an industrial, we have an industrial port of entry. There are three different ports of entry here at the Nogales port of entry. One is industrial. So, about around 70% of the food that's cultivated in Mexico and consumed in the United States comes through the Nogales border. We have
Wow.
a huge tourism industry. People in southern Arizona, people coming from Phoenix, people coming, a lot of snowbirds, a lot of people coming from Detroit. They summer here or
Yeah.
they winter here, right? They want to go to Mexico. Medical tourism, people are coming down
Mm.
here. A lot of Medicare folks are coming down here because it's cheaper to get their meds. It's cheaper to get health care. It's definitely cheaper to get dentistry care. So
Oh,
there's actually a lot of back and forth, across the border. But we don't think of it in the same way, like you were just talking about, like, the
yeah.
northern border. Yeah, it does take time. It takes time. And if you don't have, it'll take a couple hours, depending on, sometimes you can come and you're really happy when the line is
Yeah.
short, but the line isn't always short, and so it does take time. But the border still is porous, and it's such an interesting experience because what we see, and literally, like, I go out the door and I just look to the left and I see a 30-foot wall with layers of concertina wire on it. And I see on the US side, Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection, and now ICE and private armed security guards before I
Oh,
even
wow.
get to the actual wall itself. And then I walk through the port of entry, and then there are, on the Mexican side, there's a customs, there's customs check for sure. And then they also, in their negotiations, in the Sheinbaum negotiation with the Trump administration, they also have the military and the municipal police. So um, people are still going back and forth, but the structure around it, and to your question of, like, what's that like? It's violent. If I
Yeah.
could say it as such. So, yeah, I mean,
Right.
you can normalize that, right? We've done that all over the world. For people who come and who walk across the border, when we walk across the border with the groups, people who have been in Palestine and Israel say it reminds them just of that, when they walk
Mm.
across, that border. And so, I think it does something to the soul.
Yeah.
I think that it's just sad. It's such a, I don't know, it's very sad. And it's violent and it's divisive, in that regard. And it doesn't stop people from moving back and forth, right?
Right.
It
I'm
does.
on Jefferson, downtown Detroit, and the crossing is not even, it's a quarter mile down the road. I mean, I can walk to it and cross over it. Um, and the the significance of how easy it is for me to go into Canada and come back versus going into Mexico and coming back speaks volumes of about racism, really. I mean, I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, with that, at least that's what at least on the outside, that's how it appears. Um, so
I
how
guess.
do you work with your constituents and continue serving them and doing that back and forth, crossing and seeing all of the basically militia, for a better word, all of the security that's there, and not let it affect you, or not let it, I don't know, maybe it does. I mean, does it, my
Mhm.
thought is, man, this would make me angry every day seeing this. Or though some people would say that makes them hard-hearted towards the immigrant also. So I guess maybe could you address a little bit of that aspect of it?
Yeah. Um, well, I would say that your experience of crossing back and forth the border, your northern border, our northern border, would your experience probably be the same. You wouldn't have a problem crossing back and forth. You could cross back and forth. And and yet it has an impact, right? Just looking at your face, like it's surprising to think, wait, could I? But you could. You have that privilege. You have that
Yeah,
privilege, right?
yeah,
And that's what the reminder, the discomfort is for me when I go back and forth, because I go back and forth, and when I say goodbye to people who stay here in Nogales, Sonora, and they're like, "Oh, you're going over, huh?" And underneath that is like, you're doing something I can't do, right? I can't do that.
right, right,
Or if I do it, I have a price to pay. um, yeah, that is, it's disturbing. It's disturbing to know that we don't have the same militia in the north at the northern border. I
right,
agree with you. I think it's completely racialized. I think it's cruel. Um, and the temptation is to, um, the temptation is to focus that anger on, um, on the people who are enforcing unjust laws, essentially. And that, I say, is a temptation, because those are people as well, right? They're
right.
people as well. So I reflect a lot on my privilege, and what do I do with that privilege now that I know that I have it. I'm uncomfortable with it. Um, and I stay in the discomfort. And then I pray, all right, what do you want me to do? I can go back and forth. I have access to politicians. I can vote. I have resources. What do you want me to do with these now that I realize that I can't go back to the comfortable ignorance that I had before? Like,
Right.
and that's something that a lot of people really wrestle with when they come down here. They have these great experiences, with the migrants who are here in the shelter. And I mean, they have incredible conversations, and they eat meals together, they play cards or games or something. And then it comes to the goodbye. And then the question is, how do we change the systems that are so unjust and create such cruel enforcement of policy that is
Right.
is racially motivated and immoral?
Right. We went to the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. So we went through, and then we came back. So then we came back in, and we handed them our passports. And so was my husband and our two kids at that time. And now we're all redheads. I'm a redhead who married a redhead, and we had two redheads. And so they coming back into the States, they looked at our passports, they handed them back, and they're like, go on. And my daughter said, as we were crossing through, she goes, they just looked at us and said, you guys are glow in the dark white, just whatever, we don't care. And it was one of those moments where my daughter was saying it out loud, as in like she's having her own revelation kind of thing at
Mhm.
that moment of, because we had a few months before that done um a short term mission trip in the Philippines. where we went to help build a church. And so it was this whole, we were kind of having a whole awakening that whole summer of, you know, our experience there compared to our experience here. And of course, it was nearing the end of the first Trump term. Uh, so it was, everybody on everybody's mind, um, which makes me think about how you're in the second term right now. And so uh, I know the wall wasn't built when Father Gary went. So now there's a wall there. And I'm curious, how has the the first term and the second term been different for you there, and how you run your ministry, and like how has it affected it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally wasn't here during the first Trump administration.
Oh God. Okay.
But as we were preparing for the second Trump administration, Joanna Williams, a lot of people had been here.
Yes.
And so they had enough experience to guide us, I think, very well in it. And a couple of things really, really stand out for me to this day. One is that our leadership said we've been through the first Trump administration, and he was elected the first time on an anti-immigrant rhetoric on promising to build the wall. Mexico is going to pay for it, I think is what he was saying at that point. But he was very serious about it. And during the COVID time, I mean, he shut down essentially the movement through Title 42. And
Got it.
so they said, we're taking his campaign promises really seriously. Um, so when he came during the second, the other thing that I remember Joanna saying is that we have been through this before, and our mission is not dependent upon the United States administrative leadership. Our mission is part of the church, and
Yeah.
is really following the spirit. So
Oh, I love
so
that.
let's prepare for the worst, in a sense, and
Yeah.
hope for the best, and move in justice. Um, what I think was, for me, coming in on the second administration, I was so taken off guard by the rapid impact of the policies. I think in the first Trump administration, there was definitely a lot of things happened, but in that administration, there were people who were trying to keep some semblance of continuity with what had happened in the previous administration. He didn't have the same loyalty that he has
Right.
demanded in this administration. So it's
Yeah.
not just President Trump. I mean, it's been Kristi Noem, it's been J.D. Vance,
Right.
J.D. Vance, who is professing as a very strong Catholic. It's now Mark Wayne Mullen. So, I mean, and they have just a machine behind this. Um, I I never thought that I would see, in the beginning, I mean, one of the first executive orders that he signed was to completely eliminate asylum from the whole process, with the exception of white South Africans.
Oh, wow.
In the first year, the white South Africans could apply for asylum. The cap was at 7,500. And this last year, they've increased that cap to 10,000. So there's no doubt that this is racialized. This is
Right.
and this is yeah. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I At this point, the enforcement of the cruelty of the enforcement is something that maybe 5 years ago I would say no, not in the United States, not in America, that can't happen. But I just learned that now ICE agents they're going to add another aspect to their uniform, and it's electrified gloves
Oh
gloves
my
that can
goodness.
offer electric shocks. So I think that for me, we continue to do the best that we can. And thank goodness we are on the Mexican side. That's where our humanitarian, efforts are focused. We do work on the United States side too, a lot with education, a lot with advocacy, and with mobilizing people in the communities to work with communities of migrants who are in the United States already. But like we weren't impacted as much by all of the aid that was cut off from, like Catholic Charities and
Oh,
other
right.
different organizations that were just working with migrants and refugees. It's really been the gift of part of being that binational organization that we are. But the cruelty that I've heard that's happening right now, and the massive changes so quickly, but the massive changes and the kind of I guess just there's just no accountability, right? That's something that I think has been a big difference. There's always been, for the people who have come here and the advocacy that we've been doing, there has always been some element of abuse of authority that we've been working with.
Right.
But now, like where, like the offices that we would contact within the government on the United States, I mean, they've been dismantled, right?
Right.
They've been gutted. So that whole kind of checks and balances that is no longer there. I think for me, that's a big difference between the first and the second Trump administrations.
Yeah. But yeah, if you don't even have the departments you would normally work with are gone. So,
Yeah.
uh, the well, I have a question on here that says um, about your education and research component, but you've talked a lot about the education. So I am curious a little bit about the research component. Like, what do you mean by that? And then I want to talk about how people can get involved, either with your ministry or other ways to get involved and support immigration and refugee work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, with education and research, they kind of go hand in hand, right?
Okay.
And
Got it. Yeah.
so we don't really do research per se through Kino, but we work with others a lot in research. And a couple of
Got it.
examples could be, so we have long-term volunteers who come here, and they are coming for a lot of different reasons, but we have them coming they might be studying immigration, and then they want to have an experience, a field experience primarily. I can think of two examples of this. One is Tobin Hansen, who is the co-author. He's kind of the co-contributor for the book Voices of the Border, which comes and he was here for quite some time doing I think he was doing his research. He's an anthropologist, and he was doing his research here in Nogales for years and worked with Sister Ingracia Robles, who's one of the missioneras of the Eucharist. And as he was doing his field research here, a student from Italy, Mariana, who just came here, she was here this past year, and she was doing her research. She's an Italian student, focusing on immigration, and she wanted field work outside of Italy. And of course, that Italy has its own immigration crisis. She came here to do her research. So they work with our director of education and advocacy to for limits, and there are certain policies and rules that we follow, but people will come here and they will want to do field research a lot. Examples, another example is we might be working with the Scalabrinis soon. They're doing a larger kind of a larger project on different albergues or different shelters and the impact of the Catholic Church on immigration with the shelters, and seeing how sisters are involved in that as well. So the Kino Border Initiative here, we have a lot of sisters who are here in comparison. So we're one of those sites. So people are very interested in our experiences and in kind of field work here.
How often do
Right.
you do those a year?
Well, we kind of do them year round.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do them year round. So it would, if a group was interested in having an immersion experience, my suggestion is always to go to our website,
Yep.
kinoborderinitiative.org.
Okay.
And it says ways to get involved. And so one of them could be immersion. It would say learn on there. And Inigo Caceres is our education coordinator. And so he could look at different options for what works for the group and what works for us as well. We have quite a few. We get probably 50 groups a year, anywhere between, around
Wow.
that 50 groups a year.
Now, do they
So
all come? Do all the Northerners come in the winter when it's warm
you would
and it's cold up
think,
here?
but no, it depends on schedules. Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends on schedules. So I always ask people when they come like in the middle of July, why are you here
Right.
in the middle of July? Because that always gets to the deeper level, right? It's not just the weather. So coming on an immersion is one way that people can get involved. I think it's really important to learn. If people are interested in this, I mean, learning is one of the first steps. And I would say learn what's going on in your own community, like in Detroit. I mean, there's so much going on. But also there's a lot of information that is available to us on the website. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the Voices of the Border book, which is also on our website,
Yeah.
because it actually gives it it's the stories of people who have been here, who have been accompanied over the years, but they're placed in these stories are placed in the context of the themes of why people are coming to the border, why they're trying to cross the border.
Yeah.
And so we know a lot, like people who come, groups that'll come, they'll want to do like a book study on that or book discussion or something. So I think learning is really important. We also have another way of learning, and that is that those are updates that come from Kino, and we have different aspects where we're updating people, what's actually happening at the border, what we're seeing, as well as larger trends that are a part of that. And then we also have congressional updates in which we're looking at
Wow.
policies and we're asking people to do some advocacy with their elected officials. So those types of learnings and updates are very important.
Yeah.
You can
So is
always
that
come
like
for a visit.
yeah,
Mhm.
is that like an e-newsletter that they can sign up for on the
Mhm.
website or
We have a
something?
newsletter.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
that's
then there's the newsletter is a little different from the congressional update. So
oh,
if you're interested in the congressional update, then that would be more of an invitation, like an asking, or we usually ask groups. And if people are interested in that, you could certainly contact me, and I'm happy to place you on that. We don't want to just blanket it for everyone and fill up their
right.
inboxes, but we want people to be surely interested in it because we offer the stories that are necessary for people to understand and that they can share them. We look at the policy, and then we ask for particular actions. So and that, if
Yeah.
you want, like I said, if you're interested in that, you can just email me at emckenzie@kinoborderinitiative.org, and I'm happy to do what I can to get you on that list. It's a pretty quick little click on the computer. And then there's always, you can always feel free to come down for a visit.
Yeah.
1 day visits or the immersions are very powerful. There's a lot of different ways to get involved.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely in the show notes. I'm definitely going to have the website and some of those things in there, ways that they can contact you. So that'd be great. Is there something like I didn't think to ask that you're like, man, I really want people to know this, either about our ministry or about immigration itself or anything like that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that one of the things that we're really aware of with immigration right now is that, and it's kind of always been the case, but we're feeling it a lot more, is that the border is everywhere. And you're at the northern border. So we're both at the border in this sense. But the way that our brothers and sisters are being treated in the interior of our country is something that that we're increasingly concerned about. I mean, we've always been concerned about this, but it's just it's something that I would just invite your listeners to really look at, like, where are the detention centers, near me? What is the detention center? How are the police working with ICE agents? Where in the community do my neighbors not feel safe? How can I get involved with, maybe, I mean, just bringing food to people, or driving people back and forth to work? Some of these areas where our communities feel so um, where people thought that they were going to be safe once they arrived in the United States, and now it's so dangerous for them within our own country. I think that that's a very important part of our awareness right now, that immigration is not just at the borders. It is at the borders, but immigration right now is so much in our own communities. And so
Right.
just to be attentive to that and to reach out.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we're 15 minutes from Dearborn, which is one of the largest settlements for Middle Eastern families, and in particular Muslims. So it's been very difficult and challenging for them. Um, so, yeah. Although
Yeah.
Abdul El Sayed just won the Democratic nomination, so maybe they're feeling a little safer. Yeah.
Or more courageous, right? There's
Right,
nothing,
right.
I think fear and courage kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, thank you so much. This has been very encouraging. I mean, discouraging, but also encouraging that you just continue to persevere in spite of the powers and that be, right? The powers and principalities.